The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
All right. We are getting ready to do the song. And Carrie, I have to tell you, I am so excited about this song. We are going way back to the way back machine because we're talking about doing things different, whether it's how you get your information, whether it's how you win elections, whether it's how you get your news. So, Dennis, let's hit it. Let's go way back with Gladys Knight and the Pips. I got to use my imagination. Dance.
That's us. I love it. Good pick. Good choice. I approve.
You approve. Good. Well, go ahead and kick us off.
Well, I'm happy to do that. So, welcome again to the Friday Power Lunch, where we convene the activists and the actions going on in the Commonwealth of Virginia and beyond. Today is Friday, May 9th, and this is being brought to you by the Unstoppable Women of Network Nova, as we mentioned, where our motto is when we vote, we win. So, thanks for joining us today. Just a few reminders before we get started with our power chat. That we are always welcoming our Patreons who support us financially and support the show. There will be a link in the chat for you to join us as a supporter, a paid supporter, where you'll get exclusive content, VIP treatment from all of us. And you can still join as a Patreon. Today, we want to welcome our newest Patreon, Aaron Phillips. So thank you for that support. And then, of course, we always want to remind you to join us for the after chat, where we will process all the great information that we picked up from today's Power Lunch. So welcome again. As I mentioned, it's the Friday Power Lunch, and today our guests are Sam Shirazi, the Virginia political analyst and writer behind the amazing Must Listen Substack podcast, The Federal Fallout, that breaks down all the latest in Virginia politics and what I think of as connecting the dots between what is happening at the federal level and what is happening here in this critical year. Holiday Adair from the Blue Voter Guide is making it easier than ever for voters to find out more information about down-ballot candidates and candidates who are sharing our outlook, being forward-thinking. So we're looking forward to talking with her. They have progressive endorsements of races all over the country. So we're going to learn a little bit more about her inspiring story that was just covered in the Grassroots Connector. And our good friend Andrea Miller joining us today. She's the director of Center for Common Ground, and she's president of the National Women's Political Caucus. She's a grassroots organizing veteran. We've all learned so much from her. She has developed a toolkit full of voter engagement strategies, advocacy resources, and digital organizing tips that you don't want to miss. And they've created this toolkit, which we are definitely going to cover today and learn from her. So definitely excited about the show. But first, for now, I wanted to bring you in and talk about the news of the weird, as we used to call it, I guess, but sort of what's been going on this week. What's on your mind?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is because you know how much I love the songs that we take a lot of effort to pick. And this is Andrea Miller's favorite song. So, and I didn't even know that when I picked it, but I was so excited because if you think about 2019 and all the things that have happened, and you think about where we are today, and we really do have to be creative and innovative and really think about how individually we use our imaginations to do things different. So you talked about the federal fallout. I think the way that we get our news is different today and how we provide it to information. We got to push stuff to people too. And then, of course, the voter guide, the blue voter guide, another new innovative way that we think about getting information out. And of course, when we think about Andrea Miller and all the tools and tricks and tactics that she has, when we talk about the integrated platform, people's minds are going to be blown about the imagination and creativity that is going to be available to people to really win campaigns this year. So that's what's on my mind today in terms of, how we're thinking about the show.
Yes, I know down here in coastal Virginia, the COVA Coalition, we've been working so hard on reaching out to new partners and try to form those coalitions that we're working so hard. So I'm glad you said the word integrated, because I think that's sort of the buzzword that we're using right now. We're trying to build that coalition Antoine Seawright described. It's going to be a different coalition than before, but at the same time, I do feel like we have more power than we did before, because I feel like we've got a little bit more confidence. We've got some wins under our belt as grassroots leaders. And I think we're also contributing to the toolkit and helping each other out. One of the biggest things that is going to sort of sharpen all of our tools is the Women's Summit that's coming up at the end of June 27th through 29th. It's just an amazing opportunity to power up our activism, which is what we're talking about today. And I'm really excited about that. And I know it's going to be our biggest ever, just because of how far we've come.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And so, because it is going to be our biggest summit ever, because it should be on everyone's mind. We are in a place that we have never, ever been before. So when you have the opportunity to come and get your toolkit, get your tool belt, whatever you want to call it, so that you're ready to go out after June and hit the road. And that's why today, because I know we're going to be sold out soon, we want 10 people to sign up before the end of this show. So Laura Mack, you'll track that for us. And those of you who are listening, all 152 of you right now, we want at least 10 of you to sign up today, because if you don't get signed up, you're probably going to lose your seat or not get a chance to have one, because this is going to be an awesome summit, because it must be.
Right. Plus, you want to stay in the same hotel as us. It's always fun, like after hours hanging out in the lobby is like one of my favorite parts about the Women's Summit. So book now, because it's going to fill up and you're going to be sad because you'll be schlepping from the Red Roof Inn.
That would be
No, I'm
exactly
kidding.
right. And we already had the big conversation about who has the best pajamas. And so, yeah,
Right.
so I mean, you want to build community, so you build it where you can. And I just should say, for the record, I have the best pajamas, but if someone wants to challenge me on that, I'm cool with that. Oh,
Yes. With our standing meeting at 8:30 on Monday mornings, I can attest you got some fantastic pajamas. I've seen some of them. Before we move on to our amazing guests, I do want to just bring up one more little piece of show business, and that is we're on break. We're
yeah.
going to be taking a break starting on May 23rd and May 30th. We're going to be taking some time off. The team and Fanal and Catherine and I, we're going to take some time off. Quite frankly, we're going to be working on the Women's Summit. So it's not going to be bonbons and Oprah for us. We're going to be busy. So we're going to be putting the final touches on the programming. I know some of you have submitted speaker ideas for workshops. So we're getting through all of that and doing all of our homework. But we are going to take 2 weeks off from the Friday Power Lunch. So catch us on our Substack. Don't forget, we will be active on that, and you can always find us. And I believe our updates will still be going out, so we won't be too far away. Will not be on our Friday Power Lunches for those 2 Fridays. So
Yeah.
mark your calendars for that.
Yeah. So you suppose we should probably get to our first guest?
I think you should introduce Sam.
Okay. All right. So we're going to have an opportunity to talk to Sam Shirazi. You've already told us all about him, but he is the Must Listen podcast of the Federal Fallout. So why don't we bring Sam up? He is all things Virginia. So Sam, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me. I've been following your work for a long time, and I know you're doing the work in the good times, the bad times, and now it's really an important time for you to be keeping your organization going. So I appreciate all that you do.
Well, you're doing some pretty amazing work right now too. And so we want to talk about the Federal Fallout, this new podcast that you're introducing. And you and I had a chance to talk about it. But the first thing I wanted to know is the name, Federal Fallout, because that's what gets people interested in looking at a podcast. Where'd you come up with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think about what's going to happen this year in Virginia, it's going to be influenced by what's going on in DC. And so I thought it'd be interesting to do a podcast about this year's election, the interaction between what's going on in DC, what's going on in Virginia. I don't actually talk a lot about what's going on in DC. It really is more Virginia focused. And, I posted on social media for a while. You can find me on Blue Sky. But I thought it would be really interesting to do this podcast because there's so many interesting things to talk about this year in Virginia. And the podcast episodes come out usually every Saturday morning. Sometimes I'll do an emergency podcast if there's breaking news. And for example, tomorrow I will be doing a podcast on some of the sleeper seats that might be competitive this year in the House of Delegates that people don't know about. For example, I'll be talking about your old district, Fennell, in House District 100. I also talk about, I saw someone in chat was from Yorktown. I talk about the district in Yorktown. So really stuff you don't see in the news. You know, the news just talks about Trump or this or that, but you don't actually get any real analysis of, okay, what's going on in Virginia? What are the districts that are competitive? You know, just kind of more interesting things that I think politically engaged people would be wanting to follow if you really want to get into the weeds of the Virginia elections this year.
Yeah, Sam, I think it's really funny. Who would think that a little sleeper district like HD 100 would be all in the news? And it's really juicy stuff, which is, probably not quite as fun, but it's kind of fun. So I can't wait to see what you're going to write about that. But I do want to talk about you talk a lot about early elections, the primaries that are coming up. And you have a lot of insight to why you think the primary is so important and really how we should think about that. So that was your very first podcast that I read. Well, I should say this. What I love about yours is that I can read them. And so I can get through them all really quickly, which I love to get my information that way. So just talk a little bit about your thinking around early voting and why you think it's so important to write about it and talk about it.
Yeah, so I would encourage everyone to either early vote or vote in the primary. Obviously, most people on here probably are going to do that, but talk to your friends, less engaged people. They don't know there's a primary. And the reality is, no one wants to get ahead of themselves, but historical trends suggest Democrats are going to be doing well this year in Virginia. And so let's just assume the Democrats are going to win. They're going to clean the statewide offices. That means essentially lieutenant governor and attorney general are going to be picked in the primary. So obviously November is important. Obviously you want to win those elections if you're a Democrat, but the person who will be lieutenant governor and attorney general are going to be picked in the June primary. And so if you care who's going to be the next lieutenant governor and who's the next attorney general, you should go vote in the primary. And the primary is going to have, I would say, less than 1/4 of the total turnout of the general election. I just think on the lieutenant governor's race, you have 6 candidates running. Attorney general, you have two candidates running. There are House of Delegates primaries in some places. It's just important as a democracy for us to participate. And, I'm talking to non-political people about the primary. I would say almost everyone I talk to who's not engaged in politics doesn't know there's a primary in June. So just talk.
I know I'm so glad you mentioned that about trends, because I feel like the more people I talk to, they see that trend, they just kind of write it off. In fact, they've already worked on to the midterms. Like they're barely even paying attention to our House district our House of Delegates election. So when you talk about that trend, they're just like, well, the pendulum's going to swing. There's nothing we can do about it. So I'm having a real tough time getting people to motivated about these primaries. Why is it that usually it's the party faithful that votes in the primaries, and then they're the ones that get to dictate who's going to be on the ballot? And as you mentioned, we have a very good chance of winning. What else can we be telling them? What else can we be educating them about with these? Oh, I'm not that dedicated to it. I'm not an insider. Why would I vote? The trend's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly for the attorney general role, it's important because as much as the governor can influence things in DC, the attorney general, currently we have a Republican who has not filed any of the lawsuits against the Trump administration or has not joined any of them. So if you care about joining some of these lawsuits against the Trump administration, if that's what you care about, the attorney general race matters, and who gets elected attorney general matters. And I think part of what I've been trying to do is educate people because, after the last election, and part of the reason I wanted to start this podcast and the podcast, I try to make it nonpartisan, so either Republicans or Democrats can listen to it. I just want to educate people because what we found out after the last election is people are not sitting down reading the New York Times every day. They don't get their news that way. People get their news through social media. They get it through podcasts. And, if you don't have good quality, informative stuff out there, they're listening to other things. So it's a way of saying, if you have a non-political friend, feel free to send them my podcast. I mean, I think there are ways of getting people engaged. I think a lot of times people don't want to think about politics. They're busy. It's too depressing. They don't think they can do anything. And I often tell people come up to me, not about Virginia elections. They just ask me, what can I do right now in this moment? And I tell them, and I live in Arlington. Most of the people I know live in Virginia. There is an election this year. You can get involved in the election this year. People have this idea about, abstract ways of getting involved, calling their congressman, all those things. That's great. I don't discourage any of that. But ultimately, what politicians care about are votes and who's winning. And even if there's a mentality, well, the Democrats are going to win next year in Virginia or this year in Virginia, it doesn't matter what we do. A 2-point win is different than a 5-point win. That's different than a 10-point win. And so we saw that in Wisconsin when there was a 10-point win in that Supreme Court race. That sent a message that was different than the Democrats just squeaking by and winning by 1. So I think letting people know there's elections that really are not that far away. Early voting for the general election starts in September. So we are not that far. We got to get through the primary first. And I get it. I mean, it's hard to get people engaged, but I do think this year in Virginia, there's an opportunity to try to get more people involved.
Hey, Sam, I'm glad, Carrie, I'm glad you asked the question. And Sam, I'm glad you answered it that way, because this is what I want to really hone in on. And I know it's a shameless plug, but I think it's important. That's why the Women's Summit is so important this year. And that's why, we want to get to the point where we have to turn people away, because this election is not about squeaking by in Virginia. Virginia literally has the ability to change the direction of Washington. We have the ability to change the way the country is focused. And that's why we cannot squeak by. It must be a 10-point victory across the board. And so everybody who can hear my voice today should understand that if you want to get involved in an election, get involved in Virginia. If you want to change the direction of the country, if you want to make a difference, it has to be about making sure this is a blowout election to send a message.
Yeah. And also, Sam, I just want to ask you about this. This is the time where we need to put Youngkin to bed. Okay. He's like a zombie. We think he dies, then he comes back. He has a major political fallout, and then he keeps coming back. So now he's got this lieutenant governor issue that is not reflecting well on him. And I know you've covered it, Sam, and we wanted to ask you about that. But a big loss by the Republicans this fall will please, hopefully, maybe put Youngkin to bed. I'm tired of him. But can you just give us some insight on that LG situation? Because I know you wrote about it in your Substack.
Yeah, I mean, just long story short, the Republican nominee became this guy named John Reed, who was a radio host, and Governor Youngkin called him and asked him to drop out based on some alleged pictures that had been posted on Tumblr. He said it wasn't him. Long story short, John Reed didn't drop out, and he kind of got the better of Glenn Youngkin, and Glenn Youngkin had to kind of go and say, oh yeah, well, it's his choice. And I do think Youngkin has been weakened. I think, he's essentially, and this essentially made it clear to everyone, he's very much a lame duck. He's not really the leader of the Republican Party anymore in Virginia, because everyone sees that he's on his way out. And Winsome Sears, she's trying her best to run her campaign, although she's kind of been in the basement a lot. And John Reed understood that there's this power vacuum in the Republican Party in Virginia, and he's kind of come out, and he's the most, MAGA, pro-Trump person. And so there's a risk that he might, if I'm Winsome Sears, I'm worried he's going to kind of run his own campaign, outshine me. Winsome Sears, I think most people on both sides of the aisle are not super clear what her campaign is right now. She hasn't been doing a whole lot. I think she's a little bit scared of making a mistake or saying something. And John Reed, he doesn't really care. He doesn't have much to lose. He's out there doing his thing. And so I think, whenever the other side is having a lot of issues, that's obviously an opportunity for Democrats. And I think, we have our governor nominee with Abigail Spanberger. The Democrats have their nominee. And I think the rest of the ticket can present a kind of different sort of vision for Virginia and give voters a very clear contrast to this confusing ticket on the Republican side, and they don't really know what they're doing. Are they close to Trump? Are they not close to Trump? Are they close to Youngkin? Are they? And I think Spanberger has an opportunity to really kind of run a clean race where she can make that distinction with Sears.
Yeah, that's good. So here's my thing. You wanted to also talk a little bit about the House races, and so let's talk about the House races. And we're going to have Andrea Miller. She's going to talk about them a little bit too. But give us your sense about the House races across the board. What are you thinking? What are you watching?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the challenges as a political analyst, particularly when you try to be objective, because I think after the last election, after Kamala Harris came in, we all thought, okay, this is, the Democrats are back, this is it's not going to be a disaster anymore. And obviously, we all didn't necessarily get it right. And so I want to be cautious. I don't want to assume Democrats are going to get some big blowout victory in Virginia. You want to keep your mind open. And I think the challenge for that is in the House of Delegates, because, I can tell you, okay, these are the Trump numbers from 2024. These districts are going to be competitive. The top 5 districts. And that's pretty easy to do. I think the challenge is thinking about, well, this district, which you thought might be competitive, really, it's not going to be close. The Democrats are going to win that one easily. And then this other district that you thought was a reach and it's not worth spending money on is actually going to be competitive, and you should be spending the money on that. And we saw that in 2017 when the Democrats, at least the state party, was pretty cautious. They didn't think they were going to flip a lot of seats, or at least they didn't flip they thought maybe we'd flip 10 on a good night, and they ended up, the Democrats flipped 15 seats. So I think that's the challenge, is you don't want to get too optimistic. You don't want to say, oh, Democrats are going to get this massive blowout win in Virginia. But at the same time, you don't want to leave seats on the table, and you don't want to there's a lot of great candidates running. We're fielding candidates, and the Democrats are fielding candidates in all 100 seats. They're not going to win, obviously, 100 seats, but, I don't think 60 seats is out of the realm of possibility on a good night. And so I don't think the Democratic ambition should be, we're going to flip 1 or 2 seats. I think in this environment, the thinking should be, let's maybe try to get up to 60. And again, it's not so much, it's about sending the message of, it's not just Spanberger winning and then we flip 1 seat. It's Spanberger winning big, the Democrats flip, 9 seats. And I think that all just sends a message. And so you have to just kind of think that through. And it's very challenging as a political analyst, because, people ask, which districts are looking, and I can say this one's looking competitive, but it might end up being a 5-point win. And so it's challenged. It's too early to really know, but I think people should have their eyes on more than just, 2 or 3 districts. I think that's the kind of environment we're in.
So Sam, what about the margin? Because I always think that it's really important to run up the margin. So even where you think you might not win, the opportunity to run up the margin so that you help the governor, the attorney general, the lieutenant governor. I think margins. So what we have just a minute or so. What about the margins?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think someone asked, why am I optimistic about Democrats? I mean, I think the general rule is the party out of the White House does better in Virginia elections. And, we saw that in 2017, we saw that in 2021. And the question becomes, again, going back to federal fallout, I mean, you would think that has some influence in Virginia in terms of people switching votes, not just turnout, but maybe Trump voters ending up voting for Spanberger. So I think, you always want to win, and that's the end goal. But at the end of the day, I think you have to be open to the possibility that the win is not some super close election. It could be up to 10 points. And, you saw that in Wisconsin. People thought it was going to be close. The Republicans are spending a lot of money, and it was a 10-point win. So all that's to say is, I think as you are trying to get involved this year in Virginia, thinking about the races, you want to play to win, but you also want to think about, not leaving seats on the table, not going after places that could potentially be more open to the Democratic message compared to 2024.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Sam, thank you so much. This has been really awesome. I hope that folks understood the importance of, getting the podcast Federal Fallout, because that's going to be big, because you're going to keep us all informed about Virginia, and you're going to be able to stay for the after chat. So maybe we can get some juicier stuff too from the after chat. What do you think about that?
Sounds good.
I think that's fantastic. It's a tough time to be a political analyst. A lot of people got questions for you, Sam.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. We'll see you in the after chat. Well, Carrie, I think we're doing.
I just love how he gets into it. There's just so much. I love how he gets into it. I love how he knows all about these races. I'm just it takes so much effort to understand who all these candidates are. So I'm really happy to be introducing Holiday right now and bring her up from Blue, Virginia, because talk about a lot of work. So see you later. She is the co-founder of the Blue Voter Guide for Virginia, and they are looking into a lot of races in Virginia. She's also heading up a team from the Blue Voter Guide, so we're excited to have her. Holiday Adair, welcome to the Friday Power Lunch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you were recently featured in the Grassroots Connector on a story about these deeply integrated volunteers, which is a new acronym that I learned, DIV. I think we need to find a way to also had A on the end of it, so we could call you divas, because I think that would work really well in this environment. But so you were just featured in that article about divas. Let's just call them divas. I love it. So tell us how you got started.
I was working on petition challenges in Pennsylvania for Turn PA Blue, and in their Slack channel, they had posted a call for volunteers for Blue Voter Guide. And I thought, I had just retired. I needed to fill my time with something meaningful. And so I clicked on the link, and the next thing I know, I'm at a core team meeting and digging right in. So.
Yeah, we try that trick at the COVID Coalition all the time. When someone opens up a tiny door, we just jump right in and give them a lot of responsibility because we're so happy to have the help. So this was just a complete leap of faith.
Yes.
You had never, so you had never been involved with them. That's inspiring. That's probably why they did a feature on you. So I was just, so tell us a little bit for those who don't know what the Blue Voter Guide is in a nutshell. Tell us what it is.
Mm-hmm. It is a website where a voter can go and get all of the information on candidates on the left. It is a partisan voter guide where a voter can get all the information on candidates and measures on the left and the endorsing organizations that have endorsed those candidates. So if somebody wants to vote according to their values, which I think most voters do, they can go to Blue Voter Guide and select either issues or endorsers that they already know. So if you have a voter who is interested in voting according to environmentalism, reproductive rights, union, they can select those issues, or if they know the endorsers' names, pick, set that filter on Blue Voter Guide, and Blue Voter Guide will create their ballot with candidates who are endorsed by those kinds of organizations.
Wow. So you are currently heading up a team that looks into these endorsements, and then there's another team that looks into these organizations. Can you tell us about that?
Right. So last year we took on the whole country. The years prior to that, we were really just focusing on states that had statewide races because we are an all-volunteer organization and we have to take on what we think we can accomplish. So last year, my team was almost 100 volunteers because we were doing the entire country. And so we were vetting a lot of endorsing organizations in every single state. And that included Democratic parties, that included, social justice organizations, anything that leaned left, we were looking at. So we've already done a lot of the vetting. And so this year we're trying to go as far down ballot as possible with the organizations that we've already vetted.
So I noticed in the website, it doesn't say we're endorsing Democrats. It says we're endorsing forward-looking, left of center, people-centered candidates, because these down ballot races aren't so easy to figure out. So right. why is it so important what you're doing? How do you figure that out? Many people go to the ballot. Many people go to the voting booth on election day not really knowing where these down ballot races, where these candidates stand.
Right. So if I could take Texas as an example, last May 3rd, they did have actually a huge election day for very local school boards, commissions, city council, mayors, and we did cover a lot of them. And we have a couple of volunteers who are heavily invested in Texas, even though they don't live in Texas, and are somewhat familiar with the Texas politics and the organizations down there that reveal information about school board candidates and so forth. And we did a lot of digging about what the political leanings truly are of those nonpartisan candidates, and then posted that on Blue Voter Guide. That election led to a lot of right-wing MAGA candidates absolutely not winning at all, not just by a little bit, but losing by a lot. There was a Substack article that said, many of the school boards said no to MAGA candidates. And while we would like to take credit for that, because we did have over 5,000 users in Texas on Blue Voter Guide just in the last month. Obviously, a lot of election data can only be correlational. We can't talk about cause, but it validated our work, and we felt like, okay, we were pushing that information out to voters. We're letting them know this is a Republican. This person posts MAGA support on their social media, and everything we say is linked to that data. The person can see the evidence for themselves, what we're saying about those candidates.
Well, that gives me some optimism. So when you can't find a lot of stuff, do you ever reach out to the candidates and talk to them? Do you have a questionnaire?
So I have a volunteer who just won't give up, and there's a mayor race in Delaware where we cannot find anything, not even pictures of the incumbent, let alone the opponent. And so he did email both of the candidates. They have yet to respond. So
wow. Oh, it's a mystery. They want to fly under the radar, I guess.
right.
Oh, that's a little scary. So today we are looking at toolkits, right? And we're powering ourselves up to get through this. I'm just really interested in these deeply integrated volunteers. And I'm running an organization down here with my friend Heidi. We're all on this call. Lots of grassroots leaders are on this call from all over the country. The question I had about these deeply integrated volunteers, and since you're not taking credit for Texas, I guess I can't call you divas, but I really do like that idea. What advice would you give to organizations and grassroots leaders who would like to cultivate a culture of deeply integrated volunteers? What does it take?
Well, I'm also a psychologist, and
Oh,
so
good.
understand that relationships are important. And so with the volunteers that I have on my team, I cultivate a relationship with them. And granted, it does take a little bit more work, but then they're committed to it because they personally know me and I personally know them. We have also done a monthly Blue Voter Guide cafe where we get together and we try not to talk about Blue Voter Guide. We can talk about politics, but we don't want it to be a work meeting, right? We just want to get to know each other, talk about what's happening in our states or locally, because our volunteers are from all over. So I do think, as with, canvassing, it's about relationships, developing those relationships.
Yes. Yeah. It does keep coming back to that because I guess, the amount of investment it takes to build these relationships. It takes a lot. That's why we always say grassroots organizing is 365.
Yeah.
It's not just for election season. So what keeps you motivated? What keeps you going 365?
Well, I think because my personality is about the details. I am into the details. I do like the actual physical requirements of the work. I love spreadsheets. When I was teaching, I did teach statistics, and so it was all about entering the data into spreadsheets. So it resonates for me on a personal level. And that's what keeps me going. And the fact that we have these wins.
I always joke that that Excel spreadsheets are my love language.
I hear you.
I know there's some people on this call that can relate to that because a lot of us are behind the scenes organizers, not really the ones that are out there. You always need, when you think about the superhero movies, there's always the guy in the chair.
Yeah.
Right. There's the superhero and then there's the guy in the chair. So that's always necessary. And it seems to me like the Blue Voter Guide is kind of full of the guys in the chair doing all that research to keep us informed.
And they feel like they're doing something then, right? That, that they're not being, I'm also on my Democratic committee, and the push is always get out there and canvass, and people can feel really queasy about that. And so knowing that they're still doing something meaningful is important.
Right. Right. It's also kind of, it calls me up short that we talk about how important relationships are, but then we're going out and canvassing, which is not highly relational, really, when you get to it. It's really hard. It's a big ask, especially in coastal Virginia. I don't know why. I think it could be our military influence down here that makes it really difficult to canvass. People are just inculcated to not talk about politics in more, I think more so than in other parts of Virginia for sure. We're just not supposed to talk about it. So I'm just wondering, I was really surprised I mentioned this. When you look at the map on the Blue Voter Guide website, I was really surprised. I keep thinking like Virginia and New Jersey, we have our statewide election, but there are a lot of states that are coded as having elections. So you're on top of a lot of different elections all over the country. I was really surprised.
Right, right. And a lot of down ballot. We have a new team called the down ballot data team that are scraping Secretary of State websites looking for that election information. And we are soon to have a meeting to help us decide, make that decision criteria. What can we cover, in terms of our volunteer efforts, how much that area knows about Blue Voter Guide? Because the other thing too is we could do all this work and 3 people access the guide. But the hope is that that will spread, that
Yes. Well, I'm sure you can count on a lot of activists on this call to help spread the word, because it's such a fantastic resource. And that is what we're talking about today, is resources. We always come to the Friday Power Lunch and the Women's Summit and Network Nova and Virginia Grassroots and Grassroots Connector. They're all just great resources. We love to convene for everyone. And so that's a big reason that people attend the Friday Power Lunch. So I want to thank you for coming. And the other reason that we convene people for the Friday Power Lunch is to get powered up. So I think Fanal's got something she wants to introduce to help us get motivated and feel powered up for the fight.
I do. Holiday, it was really awesome listening to Holiday. I'm thinking this is what we're talking about in terms of using your imagination, your creativity. This voter guide is pretty awesome. So I love it. And maybe there's some additional stuff she can help us with Network Nova and COVA Coalition.
And it's bottom up. And I love that, because we're not relying on anybody else to do it. You're not asking the party to do it. You're not asking anyone else to do it. They're doing it themselves. And I love that.
Exactly.
Fits.
And so, one of the things that I've been completely focused on for every single thing that we do is, are we meeting the moment? Because this is a different place that we are. Words and quotes and leaders and vibe all have to meet the moment. And so I listened to something earlier this week, and I want to share it with everyone because I think that this is how we meet the moment. So Dennis, I want you to cue this up and let you guys see this is the moment we want to meet.
President Trump has endorsed sweeping cuts to Medicaid.
Hundreds of workers, 10,000 have lost their jobs.
Plans are in the works to dismantle the Department of Education.
There are moments that will break you. This is not that moment. This moment will challenge us, test us, and if it all feels like too much, that's their plan. They want to make you feel powerless, but you are not powerless. Now, we've been here before. Together, we flipped a red seat when nobody thought it was possible.
Thank you very much.
And then, when things got really ugly, we showed how to fight back.
Mallory McMorrow. She was accused this week by a fellow state senator of wanting to, and I quote, teach, groom, and sexualize kindergartners. McMorrow responded.
They are not doing anything to fix the real issues that impact people's lives. And I know hate will only win if people like me stand by and let it happen.
I'd show this clip as an instructional video, Carville said. That video has been viewed nearly 10 million times.
The senator just showed us how to respond.
She just might be showing Democrats the path to success.
When she practically roared, I felt it in my soul because I've been waiting for someone like her.
And in the state of Michigan, Democrats
and we won.
Huge historic wins.
Then we delivered.
We expanded the earned income tax credit, repealed the retirement tax for seniors on a fixed income, repealed right to work, restore prevailing wage, universal background checks, repeal our 1931 abortion ban, and expand our state civil rights act to include LGBTQ Michiganders.
I know there's a lot of fear and anger and uncertainty right now about people in power who frankly have no business being there. So you know what won't fix it? The same old crap out of Washington.
The Democrats came ready to fight back with their little paddles.
Do you know who will? We will. We need new leaders because the same people in DC who got us into this mess are not going to be the ones to get us out of it. I'm Mallory McMorrow, and yes, I'm running for U.S. Senate because we don't have a minute to wait. Are you with me?
Are you with me? So I want to bring up Andrea Miller, who is the director of Center for Common Ground, and she's the president of the National Women's Political Caucus. And Andrea, I have done everything for you today. I got your song, I got your Are You With Me? I got you fired up, ready to talk about this toolkit, this integrated platform. So Andrea, we have to win big in Virginia. How are we going to do it?
All right, the way we're going to win big is we are going to introduce tools that were created in the 21st century. I mean, the tools that we had back in the 90s, they're really nice. I'm sick of the glue and bubble gum holding them together. We are in a different world, and it is time that our tools act like we're in a different world. In 2017, my board member and I, we created Rides to the Poll software. In 2018 and 2020, we did really powerful election problem poll watching software. These were individual pieces of an election. What we are doing now is we are putting all the pieces of elections together in an integrated election management platform. For instance, when people are out knocking on doors, and I put canvassing teams out all the time, our canvassers need to have a way to talk to each other. Our platform automatically connects all of our canvassers in a closed loop. So if it's something fun, hey, we saw a great restaurant, let's all get together when our shift is over. Or if there is a problem, they can notify all the other people, and they can notify our team back at headquarters. They can hit a red button. We are having an emergency here. They can hit their video button. This is right on their phone, same thing that they're using the canvas with. And we can see real time what they are seeing out of their camera. So what we did was we took a tool designed for emergency management, which is real time, and we stuck election management on top of it. So the real time stuff, the stuff that's expensive, that's hard to figure out, it's been done for years. That was already there. The election stuff, I've been building those pieces since 2017. So we are bringing it all under that one platform. Now, isn't poll watching really stationary canvassing where we're putting our volunteers out at a location and they are reporting what's going on? They're just not walking from house to house. Well, they've got the same platform. They've got the same tools. So if they are at a precinct and the Proud Boys or whomever, they show up on their truck with their Confederate flags and they've got guns. Pop that red button, hit your video. We now see your red button. We know where you are. We are watching your video so that if your phone is taken, if your phone is destroyed, we already have the video.
So let me ask a question, Andrea. So for the people out there who use minivan, and I'm a minivan user, I know, right? So tell me how this is going to look for me, who I use minivan and I'm going door to door. How's that work?
Going to look very much like minivan. We don't want to create an experience for people that is totally foreign to them. What they're going to have is a special button that says I've got a concern. I need you to get eyes on me because I'm going to turn on my camera. I need you to see what I'm seeing. And, or like I said, maybe they're out canvassing and they want everybody to try to get together after the canvass. Well, they're in a closed texting loop, so they can text each other. It's communication. So it's really nice when you're canvassing that you are sending information about the voter up to our system. But shouldn't you be able to talk to the people that you are out there knocking doors with in your neighborhood? Also, remember I said I wrote Rides to the Polls software back in 2017. Well, when you knock on the door, if there's rides to the polls available in your area, and you ask a voter, do you need a ride to the polls? And that voter says, yeah, I do. Well, when you say yes, our system is going to take that voter's name, their phone number, and their address, and they're going to send it up to the scheduler. We are going to need to schedule this voter for a ride to the polls. No, if you go to this website, then you can sign up. No, we're going to send it straight up to a scheduler. The people who are providing rides to the polls, they've got the dispatch end of our app, where as we assign voters to drivers, that information is going to their app, and they see all the voters that they're supposed to give a ride to in date and time order of when they're supposed to be giving those rights. So it's election management. It's a platform. And it's designed for the grassroots. It is designed for us. We will be marketing this to the grassroots. One of the people who designed the query part where you choose who are the voters where I want to go knock on their doors, his goal was to create something very, very simple so that you could look at it and go, oh, I see how this thing works. I want Black voters. Oh, they're the B. And now I'm going to go look in my precincts and I'm going to see how many Black voters there are in each precinct. And I'm going to see where they are on the map. And is it canvassable? This is designed for people with very little training. Now, because I'm involved and I am a corporate trainer, we will be providing training for people. We will make sure they are very, very comfortable. But all the developers involved have been very specific. This is a tool for the grassroots.
So I have two questions. So one of them is on micro-targeting, because I am a big fan of micro-targeting when we're trying to figure out, I don't have a lot of time to waste. I need to figure out the folks who didn't vote. I need to get to them so I can start my relationship building with them. So talk to me about that.
Well, again, we will be loading data from the voter file. Right now, at Center for Common Ground, we use PDI data because we found addresses. 26% of the address is in NGP and 2% of the addresses in PDI are wrong. So if the addresses are wrong, why are you believing anything else that you're seeing in there? So because our outreach is to weak voters, voters who don't show up in every election. If you're showing up in every election, I do not need to waste my time knocking on your door. I can send you a postcard, early voting this day to this day. And if you're alive and breathing, you are showing up. It's those people who, oh yeah, I was going to do it and then I forgot. We're going to need to go and knock on your door. We also, with our tool, are looking at, are there voters who don't vote, who live in households with voters that do? We're gonna go work with the voters that do and remind them they're probably gonna need to bring you. So we look at a 10-point scale is you are a perfect voter. There's an election, you were there. And then we grade how voters work based on how frequently have they shown up for elections. So we have that ability to say, we want voters of this race who really haven't participated. We get a count. It says how many are men, how many are women. We see a precinct map, and we can literally walk the precinct and count how many of our micro-targeted voters live in each precinct. And is it walkable? So, okay, I can see that I got 255 voters in this precinct. I've got 14 in this one. Let me concentrate on the precinct where I've got 255 of my micro-targeted voters.
Okay, this is absolutely amazing. I know you're going to stay for the after chat, but I just have one final question that everybody wants to know. You're going to be at the summit also, but when will the tool be available?
Demoing this at the summit, and the developers will be there.
So when will the tool be available? Do we have a time when it's going to be available and ready for use?
Well, it will definitely be ready for the Virginia General, since we are going to be ready to demo it at the summit. The front end query tool, I will probably use it for Chesterfield County because they've got primaries in Chesterfield County. So Benny is already working on getting them for me. So we will have done testing on the query interface, which is where a lot of people are going to interact with the back end. So we will have done some testing on that. Not to mention, I am always poking around in data, and I will be comparing this versus what am I seeing in PDI? Am I agreeing with it? Benny has access to PDI, and Benny will be all over this as well. This should revolutionize elections. We will price for the grassroots. So you're running for school board, you're going to have a tool where you don't need to be a data scientist like Benny to be able to use it. Let the data scientists be their data scientists, and then they put something where it's a picture. Click on what you want and watch it appear in front of your eyes.
Amazing.
I think this is so amazing, and it's so much more streamlined than the way we have been micro-targeting, which is just to call you and say, hey, Andrea, I need Black low propensity voters in Suffolk, CD2 and 89. Thank you for all of that work. I'm looking forward to seeing it. We've been working so hard on picking our own precincts for coastal Virginia CD2 and all the House districts overlapping. I can't wait to see this. It sounds amazing. We've getting a lot of chatter about it too.
And she's staying for the after chat. So Andrea,
We'll be here for the after chat. Yes, yes. And what people don't know is we have a very small team. There are 6 people on our national team. 5 of us are technical.
You see, then I don't have to do it. See, she's doing it, so I don't have to. I'm just saying.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank goodness.
I just need you to know, what voters do you want? That's what I need you to know.
And I know the answer to that. So there we go. All right. Thank you, Andrea. So Carrie, what do you think?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So my big takeaways. All right. So first of all, I would say, just especially on the national show and all the work Susan Wagner's been doing to convene the grassroots groups and all the stuff that Dennis is doing, Virginia Grassroots, we hear this a lot that we don't have access to data. Grassroots never have access to the data. And we've also heard from Andrea Miller about the NGP van being complete crap. So I think that's one big takeaway. And I think, you've been talking a lot about the Democratic brand. And I just think this entire show, all three guests have been basically telling us more and reinforcing more that we can take this into our own hands, and the decentralized nature of all of the grassroots within the Democratic Party, I believe, is going to enhance that brand, because we're always talking about how big our tent is, but we're really showing it when we're having input and involvement from all members in the tent. It's not enough just to say, oh, we have a big tent. Engaging everyone in the tent is really what we're all about. And I know you've got some thoughts about our brand as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I am probably one of the proudest Democrats that there is. And there's a lot of us. And so when people talk about our brand, it makes me really upset. But I know that I'm the brand. And I think that Mallory McMorrow, I think that Jasmine Crockett and many others, Jamie Raskin, demonstrate what that brand is. And that really is meeting the moment, but it's also understanding where your people are. And they're not in the same place all the time. And our people are in a very different place right now. So it's really up to us to meet that moment. And I do think that words matter. I think that actions matter. I think that how you fight back matter. It shows people that we are defending them, that we are defending the things that we stand for. So I am all about that. But I also think, we have to be creative about how we do that in the spaces and places. And I will just hark back to last week when we talked about, one of the quotes, and I know people might hate it because it comes from Ronald Reagan, but it's true and it meets this moment. And that is, if someone agrees with you 80% of the time, that they are your ally and your friend, they're not your 20% enemy or traitor. And I think that's what we have to be important about, understanding how we build our brand to meet this moment without leaving anybody out, but understanding that there's a broader coalition that we need to build to win. And I hope that all of the stuff we saw today does
all of this. And I think that, what Holiday Adair is doing, bringing all of these endorsing groups together, is all a part of that coalition building. And it not only does it help to see who the down ballot endorsed candidates are, but also learn more about the endorsing organizations, so that those of us who are building coalitions in our own community are going to learn more about those endorsing organizations. And again, for me, I just keep hearing all about the relationships, and that is a big tool, is being in relationship with the people that you are leading as an organizer. And I was thankful for, Sam connecting the dots with the federal and the local, in saying that our biggest chance for anyone who wants to say, well, what are we doing to fight the Trump regime? Our biggest tool in fighting the Trump regime is going to be a strong attorney general. So get your butts out there to the primary, because that's when they're going to be chosen. So all of that just really, again, reinforcing the grassroots tools and the power of the grassroots, and getting out there in relationship and kicking some butt.
Yeah. So it's 12:59. So I'm not going to ask Laura about the 10 people that we needed to sign up for the summit, because I'm sure that we probably got more than 10, because nobody wants to miss it, because Sam has already told us, Andrea's already told us, Blue Voter Guide, Holiday has already told us about what we must do and why it's so important. So we got that. But what's going to happen next week? What's the show next week?
So next week, we are excited. May 16th, we are going to have we have invited all the candidates for lieutenant governor and attorney general. We've been talking about what a crowded field it is. It's going to give us a chance to talk to them, to hear from them, and why these races are so important, and what we need to learn more about each individual so we can make educated choices at the ballot. We have invited candidates, confirmation that Hashmi and Lateef will be in attendance. And so we just want to make sure that if you have a candidate that you're rooting for and they have not confirmed, please ping them on the socials. Honestly, that's what they're listening to these days. We will likely use that the hot minute which we love so much, where we give each candidate a hot minute. And boy, does Catherine like to keep them on target. It's a lot of fun. That's the power of the grassroots right there. You're out of time. Click. So we hope to see all of you next week when we get to know some of these candidates better. And we will see you in the after chat. Just want to remind you about that holiday break, May 23rd and 30th. If you're not joining, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can send links to the recorded version of the Friday Power Lunch to your friends. Look for that recap email. Find us on Substack. And please remember to support us by being a Patreon. We will see you in the after chat. I think we're kicking it off. Thanks.